plays, we'd like to invite you to just close your eyes, relax, rest in the presence, and hold space.
Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamare. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamare. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Omega Dantaya Vishnavi Vakrajundaya Dhimahi Tanno Danti Prachodayat. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamare. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamare. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. 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 Om Vakratundaya Mahakaya Suryakoti Samabhrava Nirvigyam Kuru Me Deva Sara Karyeshu Sarvada. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganganapataye Namo Namaha Ganganapataye Namo Namaha Ganganapataye Namo Namaha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari Ganesha Ganya Kamari Ganganapataye Namo Namaha Namo Namaha Ganganapataye 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 Namo Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari Jai Ganesha Gananata Dayaniti Sakala Vignya Karadura Hamari Namo Namaha Ganganapataye Namo Namaha Ganganapataye Namo Namaha Ganganapataye Namo Ka
Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to our weekly online satsang. Satsang being a Sanskrit word that literally means community of truth. But it's talking about a spiritual community of two or more people coming together who are on the path of awakening, the flowering of their hearts, spiritual transformation, and that's what we are. So welcome. You wouldn't be here if you were not awakening in the process of transforming yourself. We're so glad. That's what the world needs right now. We need to awaken the whole human race, not just us individuals, though that's where it begins. We need to awaken from this nightmare rooted in a culture built on competition, conflict, and war, into a whole new world that's built on harmony, cooperation, and peace. That happens when we awaken to our true natures and our hearts begin to flower. When that begins to happen, we have more in common with each other, those of us who are awakening, than whatever religion or spiritual tradition or spiritual group or background we may have come from. There's something about the energy and the presence of awakening that bonds us together very deeply. The Flowering Heart online satsang welcomes people from all over the world, from other continents and from many different countries. And it's such a beautiful opportunity for us to actually connect and share our presence and our energy in this way. We also share the Flowering Heart blessing, a direct transmission of divine consciousness, which is fully enlightened. And the divine presence is your true nature. But the Flowering Heart blessing is an impartation of enlightened consciousness, energy, and it catalyzes in the receiver that process of awakening, which is endless, really. Awakening is not a destination. It's a journey that goes on and on and on. The Flowering Heart blessing is something that the Divine shared with me and Suzanne about 8 years ago. And we had been deeply involved in another transmission of energy for about a decade. And Suzanne and I have been doing various energy transmissions for many decades. Transmissions that are designed to help people to awaken to their true nature. Your true nature, in its essence, is already enlightened and is already fully divine. Actually, what we're seeking is within us. We are the ones we were seeking. We may have been very enamored of a master, an avatar, a saint, an enlightened being that may have had a great and wonderful impact in our lives, but ultimately we come to discover the outer world is a mirror of the inner world. And that light we saw in the teacher's face that was coming through their eyes and their presence, that we were so uplifted by being in the presence of an enlightened being, they were just holding up a mirror, showing to us our true nature. Eventually, we take that dive within into the center, and we discover at the center of our being is the divine source itself, and it is our original essence and true nature, and it is enlightenment itself. What a trick to tell people that we'll give you enlightenment, or maybe someday you'll get there. When you are there, you are it. You never left it. The circumstances of life, a good friend of ours, I really like something Doug Bentley said on a podcast over the last week. He said, "You've never left heaven. You never left the light. You never left the oneness, because you are that." And what we perceive unfolding in time and space are just unresolved situations playing themselves out. But we are still in heaven. We never left. Once you begin to get that and begin to look for the space between your breaths, that moment of quiet silence between this thought and the next thought, between this feeling and the next feeling, no matter how powerful the thoughts, the feelings, the images are coming at us, there is a tiny little break between them. And if you go through that little teeny space, it opens into an infinite wonder, which is Bodhi. It is the divine presence. It is the void. It's it's everything. So, let's do that. We like to open it at this point to questions and answers on the spiritual journey, on the subject of awakening, divine union, meditation, pre-life, afterlife, infinite life. Whatever you've been puzzling about or thinking about, would bless everyone if you ask a question. If you'd like a little more light or clarity on something you've been pondering, that always gives the divine a nudge to pour inspiration out to me and Suzanne to share with everyone, and the whole group is benefited. So ask that still small voice inside of you if there's something you might ask in the satsang that would catalyze an outpouring of light. Before I forget, if you're on Facebook Live, please give us a like or a love, a heart or a thumbs up, and then we go in after the webcast and we see your names and we send you special love and hugs and blessings, and it's just so nice to know you were here. Unless, like Moray or John, you put comments in there. We know you're here and we're very glad you're here. You can still give us a like or a love too. It would be nice. If you're on Vimeo, you need to enter a comment in the chat and tell us who you are, because if you're using a stage name, we won't know who you are. Some people just go namaste, and their stage name is the light. So we're glad the light was with us, but who was that masked person? So while I'm waiting for the possibility of an inspiring question, I take quotes each week in little articles from a website called inspiringquotes.com. And there were some really good ones tonight about the importance of taking time to rest, another one on finding humor in every situation. But this one's kept drawing to me, and this is Buddhist wisdom from Pema Chodron. And the article of quotes from Pema was compiled, authored by April Davila. And she is a lover of words. Her debut novel, 142 Ostriches, was released in 2020. Does that sound interesting? Sounds like 142 ostriches. Sounds like a lot of my friends. Sounds like me sometimes. Okay, so Buddhist nun and author Pema Chodron is renowned for her teachings on what she calls the wisdom of no escape, which emphasizes the importance of facing our fears instead of avoiding them, and embracing life for what it is, ups and downs alike. Throughout her life, Chodron has been a dedicated practitioner and teacher of Buddhism, whose words have inspired and guided people around the world. Born in New York City in 1936, she traveled in 1974 to the Karma Dzong Meditation Center in Colorado, where she learned from Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, the founder of the Shambhala Buddhist community in North America. She became one of Trungpa Rinpoche's closest disciples and was one of the first Westerners to receive full monastic ordination in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. In the years since, Chodron has been a key figure in bringing Buddhism to the West and has played an important role in the growth of the Shambhala community in North America. She has trained many Western Buddhist teachers and has served as a mentor to countless students. Her message of fearlessness, compassion, and wisdom is a beacon of hope and a reminder of the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and find peace and happiness in the midst of life's challenges. Here we're sharing just a few of the quotes that have earned Chodron a reputation for wisdom and insight. Here we go. One can appreciate and celebrate each moment. There's nothing more sacred. There's nothing more vast or absolute. In fact, there's nothing more than the present moment. The happiness we seek is already here, and it will be found through relaxation and letting go, rather than through struggle. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. The truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. Whether we experience what happens to us as obstacle and enemy, or as teacher and friend, depends entirely on our perception of reality. It depends on our relationship with ourselves. We think that brave people have no fear. The truth is that they are intimate with fear. Clarity and decisiveness come from the willingness to slow down, to listen, and look at what's happening. When we're willing to stay, even a moment, with uncomfortable energy, we gradually learn not to fear it. No one ever tells us to stop running away from fear. We're very rarely told to move closer, to just be there. The advice we usually get is to sweeten it up, smooth it over, take a pill, distract ourselves, but by all means make it go away. In practicing meditation, we're not trying to live up to some kind of ideal. Quite the opposite. We're just being with our experience, whatever it is. When things are shaky and nothing is working, we might realize that we're on the verge of something. Nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. We don't sit in meditation to become good meditators. We sit in meditation so that we'll become more awake in our lives. When we resist change, it's called suffering. But when we can completely let go and not struggle against it, when we can embrace the groundlessness of our situation and relax into its dynamic quality, that's called enlightenment. Sometimes, when things fall apart, well, that's the big opportunity to change. She has a nice way of putting things. Mm-hmm. Indeed. There is one from this Finding Humor in Life that I want to read. Not the whole article, but this one spoke to me somehow. It must be around 40 when you're, quote, over the hill. I don't even know what that means and why it's a bad thing. When I go hiking and I get over the hill, that means I'm past the hard part and there's a snack in my future. That's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Ellen DeGeneres. I thought you'd like that. There's a snack in my future. Spending a lot of time with our granddaughter these days. She's got lots of snacks in her future. Yeah. So, back to the questions. And we actually got one. Michael has been a great purveyor of stimulating questions lately.
Yes.
We thank you
Thank you.
for that. Michael Christopher writes, if we're in heaven now, then why is there suffering, or we choose to suffer? Well, true. Is there suffering in heaven? No. But you see, heaven and the hell world that we've created, that many of us are conscious of and not conscious of heaven, they coexist simultaneously. Heaven and hell are not in the past and not in the future. They're right here, right now. Everything, as Pema Chodron said, really there's nothing but the here and now. Celebrating every moment is vast, it's wonderful. In fact, there's nothing else. I mean, 1,000 years from now, if you're still around, ask yourself if it's still now, and you'll discover that it is. So if we're in heaven now, why is there suffering? Because many of us are blind. We're not experiencing heaven. When Christ came out of his 40-day fast in the desert and began his public ministry, he said, it's been very mistranslated, but he said basically, wake up. Let your consciousness be transformed and awakened, because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's here. And he came to a people that were suffering. They were in basically slavery to the Roman Empire. There was a lot of religious repression and oppression of the Jewish people at that time in Israel. There was a lot of poverty. There was a lot of disease. There was a lot of religious oppression. And people were suffering. And he came and said, wake up. The kingdom of heaven. And they were waiting for Messiah to come and open the door for heaven to be manifest. And he came and said, it's here right now. Wake up. And then he went about demonstrating it, healing multitudes of people and opening the eyes of countless numbers of people with a single word. It was quite amazing. So there's suffering because we need to be awakened, basically. And Pema Chodron said that we're suffering because we're resisting. We're resisting suffering. And we're afraid of it. And we're running from it. And if we would stop it and we would just face our fear, we would just accept what is in the present moment, suffering drops away. It doesn't mean the problems all disappear, but the suffering of our fear of our problems, our resistance to our problems, all of that fear and resistance is the source of our suffering. And you said, or we choose to suffer, and that's sadly also true. There's that sad fact that most of us are not experiencing our enlightened essence yet, but there's also all of this programming and conditioning that says you're an unworthy person, you've made lots of mistakes, you deserve to pay the price, you deserve to suffer because of how imperfect you are. And that's completely the wrong way to look at life. But some of us do choose to suffer as a way of sort of paying off our debt to the universe, or because we think we deserve it, or just because we don't even know we're choosing it, because it's a subconscious choice that was put in us. You know, so maybe somebody said, "Oh man, you're going to fail. You're never going to make it. You're a loser." Now, if we internalize that, then on a subconscious level, we could be choosing to manifest that rather than the spirit of heaven that we truly are, that we've never left. It's funny, like, that most of us, until we wake up, think we might get to heaven, we might return to heaven, we might return to source, return to the light, when we are the light. And when we finally awaken, we go, oh my gosh, I've been here the whole time. But he didn't know it. And it's not knowing the truth. and not experiencing the truth that causes so much suffering in our lives. That's why awakening is so important.
I like that distinction that you said about the subconscious is choosing, because we're not actually choosing to suffer on a conscious level on purpose, and we can't know what we don't know. And so until we've had these peekaboos or these awakenings where we're like, oh, I'm sabotaging myself. Oh, I've set up my life this way and it's not working out, and I need to change something about it. I need to look at things from a different perspective. So until you have those aha moments, it's hard to even know that on some level you are choosing to stay in that rut or that pattern. And like Michael said, a lot of it's because that's how everything's set up right now on the planet. You know, we don't know that we have a choice about different things in our life, because we've always been told that you need to do this way and you need to do this that way. And so when you're able to break free from that illusion of that's how everything is supposed to be and go with what you feel in your heart, then there's more light, there's more ease, there's more peace.
Yipper?
Even with suffering.
Laura added, or we're addicted to the thoughts and feelings we don't even like. Yeah, and you know, it begs the question, why would we be addicted to thoughts and feelings we don't even like? Well, that's the thing about addiction. And asking why might be helpful on some analytical point at some point, but basically the way out of addiction, whatever we're addicted to that's destructive, is realizing that we're not in control of our lives. That, and of course, we're not anyway. But when we're addicted in a destructive way, something is in control of us that we're addicted to. And the way out is to discover, to acknowledge, my life is out of control. And I'm powerless to do anything about it. And so in the 12 steps, for instance, acknowledging and opening to the help of a higher power, whether that's God for you or Buddha mind or however you conceive of the absolute, it's turning to that light that is, I just said it's us. So, and I'm about to say it's beyond us. But I mean, in a place of addiction, it's that power that is higher than the power of the addiction. And then there's so many more steps to take. So yes, there can be, strangely, addiction to really pathological thoughts and feelings. And part of it could be what we address, that we've been programmed that way. There can be other factors. But the most important thing is getting out of it. It's, I mean, we sit around a lot of times and we go, oh, I'm so miserable. Why? Why is it like this? Why? And when the question we need to ask is, how do we heal this? How do we move forward? In moving forward, we may get those answers about why that happened in our lives. We may not. And if we're free, we may not care. It's just, there it goes. I mean, I know people that talk to me about their alcoholism. And some people, and generally, you know, an alcoholic in recovery says it's a disease. And sometimes it may be genetic. Sometimes it may be have a psychological source. But again, there it is. There's the elephant, and my life is out of control. I need to open to a power that is higher than my addicted separate self, which obviously can't control that particular pattern in our lives.
That thing about being addicted to our suffering too made me remember a few years ago when we started picking up trash on the beach, and I was picking it up, and then And then I could feel my ego come up when I'd walk by somebody and they would say, oh, thank you so much. Or I would see somebody noticing and putting a thumbs up, and I was really just doing it as a meditation. But I started to pay attention to my body chemistry of when the ego would kick in, and I'd get this little rush of some kind of endorphin. I mean, it was like a drug. It was, like those mice that will keep pressing the button to get the candy instead of the real food. And, so it made me realize how powerful the ego is and addicting. And that could be the part of the ego that has to be right, that wants to feel significant, that wants to be loved, that wants to be seen, that wants attention. But then there's also the part of the ego that gets a little rush, a little endorphin rush, for suffering. For decades now, when I've worked with people in a healing modality, people say, I have this. My doctor says I have this. And it's almost like a badge of honor, or I have a label, and it's also an emotional connection. Once you say that to somebody, you're going to get empathy, you're going to get compassion, you're going to get a hug, you're going to get nurtured and taken care of. And so that's, getting an addiction to suffering, because we're getting some kind of a emotional, mental, physical, psychological, and a chemical response to that suffering.
Isn't that called masochism?
Yeah, it is. But we don't even know that we're doing it, because an authoritarian figure told us that we have something and that we have to do something about it that they say that we have to do. And that gets us a lot of juice on all levels.
Well, let me just shine a little light on that. That's so true what you're saying, but some of us have studied the needs of the ego, of the egoic mind, and one of them is significance. Mm-hmm. A lot of us feel like, we're just kind of lost in the mix out there, and what's the meaning, what's the significance of my life? And so if you're suffering, then the spotlight's on you, and it's like it's so sad, but sometimes we find significance to our lives in what we suffer and the people that care about us and taking care of us and all of that, mm-hmm. Which I think also is part of what is going on with some people's addiction. I mean, I get to stand up and tell my story, I'm so-and-so and I have this disease, and here's part of my story. And that is important to do that.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I'm not in any way criticizing that, but I'm pointing that some of the things that we do are feeding a need of the mind to have some attention, to feel like we have some significance, even if the role of significance is a sad and suffering one. It's very strange. Human beings are very weird creatures.
Yeah, it reminds me of that study they did with plants. It was a long time ago. I think I read about it in college, that they took 3 plants, same kind of plant, and they put them in different rooms. And in one room, they would put like classical music and tell it they loved it, and just really nurtured it and was kind and gentle and sweet. And then in another room, they put one that they just left completely alone. It got some water, but nobody talked to it. There was no music played for it, nothing. And then in the third room, there was people that would yell at it and say mean things to it and be really aggressive and play aggressive, angry music. And what the scientists discovered that they were most amazed about is, which isn't so surprising, but the one that got the love and the nurturance really flourished and did really well. The one that had the anger projected at it did fine. It didn't flourish, but it did fine. And the one that was neglected and wasn't talked to or given any kind of attention did the worst. It was like wilting and not doing well at all. And what they realized was that even negative attention, so people, in abusive relationships or in family dynamics, sometimes the kids will act out to get the attention of their parents because they're going to at least get some attention than being ignored or neglected.
Yeah.
Which we do that too with certain areas in our lives.
Well, Laura said it in a word, martyrs.
Yes. But they don't know that they're doing it. You don't know that you're doing it when you're in the middle of it.
Well, true, and that's the martyr complex thing. But, I mean, in all fairness, there have been great martyrs through history who have given their lives for something that they felt was more important than their own physical life. The early Christian martyrs, but also...
Okay.
All right, let me read what David wrote. And we've been having a strange thing with our internet that's supposed to be super high speed and keeps dropping out. I apologize. So David writes, so-called addictions are just karmic imprint passed down through generations that are vibrations to release the karma one generation has to cure the trauma, and then it no longer proceeds. Yes or no?
Read that again.
So-called addictions are just karmic imprint passed down through generations that are vibrations to release the karma one generation has, to cure that trauma, and then it no longer proceeds. Yes or no? Well, okay. Ancestral karma, yes. We receive a certain imprint on a spiritual level, a psychic level, even on a DNA level, a certain imprint from our ancestors. And we get to help work that out. And that keeps it from being passed on to the next. I wouldn't say that addictions are just so-called, and I wouldn't say they're all from ancestral karma. There's also personal karma.
Right.
And most of the serious addictions I've known, there may be some ancestral input, but I've known tons of drug addicts, junkies, and hardcore alcoholics, and there's some personal work to do there. It's true that we are sort of a collection of all of our ancestors' stuff that's been passed down, but here it is. It's on the plate in front of me. So I'm going to embrace what is and work on it. And maybe that insight that some of it came down from the ancestors can be helpful. And certainly, if you work that out within yourself, it's not going to get passed to the next generation. So I see truth there, yes. Ekaterina said, I'm here in the ambulance coming back home. Yay.
Yay.
They just pulled my leg back into her place. Oh, thank goodness.
We were
hoping
holding you in prayer.
that's
Yay.
what it would be.
I was actually feeling you on the webcast tonight. I was like, I have a feeling she's going to be able to make it to the webcast.
I mean, Ekaterina is an actress and a dancer and has been through hip surgery recently. And when we heard that it had given way, we were like, oh.
Stop what you're doing.
So, yeah, and we've been praying, and it's not great that it happened at all, but it's great that
That's
it's back
great
in
news.
place and you're on your way home.
Yeah.
And Laura writes, trauma can be healed. Yes, it can.
Yes.
It has to be faced, and that's an
Hard.
interesting process, and we don't have enough minutes left to really dive into that. But trauma has to be, it's all the stuff Pema Chodron was saying, that when we stop resisting and we just relax, then all that repressed traumatic energy can bubble up and discharge and be released. It's a courageous process for some people because the trauma has been very deep and very real. So, okay, if you would, if you haven't already closed your eyes because we bored you to death and put, no, okay, one more. Katerina says, do you know the healing frequency device, it transmits waves to heal different things, emotional, physical. Do you think it can work? I love you so much. Absolutely. Contact us off the satsang sometime directly,
Well,
because we work with pulsed electromagnetic field, but we need to move on.
know, but-
PEMF.
I know, but hold on. This is something she could do right now. If you go on YouTube and you can just run a search on YouTube of healing frequencies for ... whatever it is. And the solfeggio frequencies are really good. And I've had a lot of success with using that in a pinch. And so you just put on the music and it'll play, and you can't actually hear the frequency, but it's going in the background and it's affecting your body. So.
Yeah, I think I've listened to some of that and it's been helpful in a pinch. But there are these devices that actually emit frequencies and you can dial them in. And also the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, very powerful healing frequency. There are many of them. Dr. Royal Rife cataloged thousands and thousands of frequencies that he put through a plasma tube on a frequency generator. And we've worked with a lot of, and we do work with both PMF and those kinds of frequencies, and they're very helpful to people. So I encourage you to look into it, yeah. Okay, let's all close our eyes and invoke the presence. Just relax and receive the grace. At the center of your being is the source of all blessing, all life, all light, all healing, all creation. It loves you unconditionally. This presence is pure unconditional love, light, all-knowing, all-wise. And it loves you deeply and yearns to free you from suffering, to flood you with healing grace on the level of your spirit, your soul, your body, your relationships, your life circumstances. Nothing is impossible, and it already knows what you need before you ever ask. So just trust and let go. Let yourself go and receive the grace that is pouring out to you through the flowering heart blessing. Just drink it in, soak it up. It knows exactly where to go in your being to illuminate you, to draw you into the deepest awareness of oneness with all that is. Receive the grace, the light that is pouring out to you in your physical body. Receive healing grace. The divine will release your soul from painful thoughts, feelings, and programming and trauma. Receive it, soak it up. There's nothing for you to do right now but receive. One of the most powerful ways to be healed, to be transformed and awakened, is to allow yourself to be a vessel of grace. As the Master said, it's more blessed to give even than to receive. So picture us sitting in a blessing circle with our eyes closed, our hands lifted up facing forward with our palms open. And let us invite the presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through us to all the others in the circle, knowing it's coming back through them to us as well. As it flows through you to them, it works powerfully on you. Now let us picture planet Earth in front of us. And let us take a strong intention and invite the divine presence to pour grace out through us and countless others who agree with these intentions to bring healing and help to the people of Morocco, affected by that earthquake. All the families and the people who have been touched, all the souls that have left their bodies, may they be guided to the light. Wherever there is suffering and trauma on planet Earth, we send blessing and grace. Wherever there is war, wherever there is violence, we take a strong intention that it cease, that love will blanket the earth as the waters cover the sea. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Now you can relax your hands in your lap somewhere. And when you're ready, open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me. Keep looking at least one of our eyes, and we begin the light meditation. There's nothing for you to do but keep making direct eye contact. In the light meditation, Suzanne and I are flooded with divine grace and light, and it begins to flood through us to you, through every pore of our being, but especially through our eyes, the doorways of the soul. If you just keep looking, the light streams out through our eyes, in through your eyes, into your heart of hearts, causing the light of awareness, the fire of divine love to burn brighter and brighter within you. Just relax, let it be. Close your eyes now. Meditate with us for a few more minutes as the grace we've received settles within. Now keep meditating as long as it feels good to you. And or find a place to lie down nearby on your back in Shavasana. That's the yoga pose where you lie on your back, your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides with your palms open, turned upward. And you just let yourself dissolve in the presence in gratitude. We love you very much.
Much love, light, and blessing.
Until we meet again, know that the divine within us beholds the divine within you, and we bow to you. Namaste.
Namaste.